topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Hi there.
Hey. So once again, researching. I just wanted you to know I am loving audio. I just have to come on and pause for that moment in the midst of the even beginning of this, right? Because I love the audio platforms. Not going to say specifics, right? But when we're talking about reading the book to you, amazing. So I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know if you do audio books or anything like that, but I know I
I'm
have.
sure my husband would appreciate you giving me that feedback because
Okay.
I still want to buy the physical book. Hi, everyone. It's Daria.
Yes. Sorry, coming in, right? As me, right? Because this is the thing. I have to say, yes, me and your husband are definitely on the same page. I do have to admit, I buy the books, right? But for whatever reason, maybe a lot of things on my plate, I find myself having the book and still listening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question? What's your so everybody, this is for you too. When you think of multiple intelligence, so we have, and we talked about this one day too, auditory, visual, music, kinesthetic, meaning movement.
Yeah.
I'm having a brain fart right now. We have like many visual, spatial. When you feel like the how we take things from our environment, spatial.
Yep.
So try to use all of them. Yeah. What would you say? This is, and anyone who wants to look up Howard Gardner, he came up with this multiple theory of intelligences to actually identify in education, like how do kids learn? Well, too bad half of us don't know, and then we're really struggling.
And mind you, I think back in the day, I heard it was only like 4, and then it seems to have expanded, which is even more amazing. I think and it's giving light to the arts and the music platforms, which I don't even know if they weren't trying to take them out of the school system. I don't know if we'd hear as much, but at the same time, I think, definitely society is pushing the research so that we can even keep different programs within the different school systems as well.
It's true. So you know how we have this movement of STEM, then it changed into STEAM, and then now there's even a stream coming out of UVA because they're trying to say, so STEM stands for, right, science, technology, engineering, math.
Right.
Very left side of the brain, right? Not
totally.
Me. Okay. Then we got
somewhere there.
Right. Then we have STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, math. Yes, for art, coming in with the right brain to say we can put all this together, right?
Right.
Right, left, right. Now, STEAM coming out of UVA, and I shouldn't say this just out of UVA, Curry School Edu. I believe that's where I'm seeing that the trends for education. So STREAM is also taking into account for literacy with reading. So where are we missing? So we're trying to do this integration.
Yes. And it's totally necessary. And I think each teacher, whether the old school, the new school, whether the CEUs, making sure that stuff is definitely being brought to their attention, I think will definitely be helpful in touching all of the different ways of learning. I mean, in reference to mine, I have to admit, it started out one way, and with the MS, now I'm probably trying to find it still, in reference to when I'm reading or learning things. As you can see, like finding the adaptation modes of that, that will help me be able to still keep up with the things that I'm trying to aspire or learn, or, when we're talking about intellectual wellness in reference to that growth. I think it has been one of those things where and even creating the platform, I had found, okay, I used to be able to do it this way. And now I got to do it some other way. But one thing was great, because I did early on know that in reference to reading and all that stuff, it just didn't come to me. It was in reference to understanding cognitively all that other stuff, but all that, English language craziness and trying to keep up with it with no specific routine to a lot of it. I think that threw me off, just in reference to reading disabilities. But then going forward, you kind of get all your own tricks, you memorize stuff, whatever the case may be. And then, so that was in place with the reading aspect of things, right? But then it didn't affect anything for me cognitively. Like it was just the pain in the boot, right? To read in front of the class. Like, asked me to read in class, I'm like, "And I'm out."
Mhm.
I'm trying to go to the bathroom, like,
Mhm.
pass. Like, if you told me what we're gonna do on the agenda today, I'm trying to find the pass right then, right? So, all in all, like, that in itself was something that I had to figure out, okay, I don't wanna experience this feeling. At the same time, I know I have this I feel like there's a well, actually, I didn't know I had a problem. It was just like, "Okay, I'm not getting it right." My mother's a special ed administrator. She totally gets it, you know what I mean? But at the same time, the mainstreaming aspect was the way to go. But art was my thing. I brought in art to a lot of what I did. If it was social studies, it was like doing some kind of art something to also bring and then the understanding and the learning. I mean, I know probably geography because I did it more through the art form and can remember what shape was next to what shape. You know what I mean? As opposed to you tell me it's in what country, in what continent, and it's on the left of, right of, that ain't me. I'm not that person. You know?
Wow.
So when even with the reading now and trying to just make sure of, to try to get everything in line, but then also with me being all over the place and the monkey brain and whatever the case else may be in there, I have to do things in a lot more pieces. Well, I
Mhm.
don't have to, but it's kind of making it that way. So all in all, it's one of those deals where I'm still figuring it out now. But I know art is definitely still in play. Music is not as much anymore. A go-to just because certain sounds bother me, but other than that, so yeah, I'm adapting on my learning. Like you might have the same learning skills. I think as you get older, there's
Your
aspects of just
primary versus Tom. Yeah. Oh my
yeah.
gosh, we're so similar. What you were talking about resonates so much. So I don't know. I don't think I've shared this with a lot of people in my lifetime about my own reading struggles. Like, again, maybe I was embarrassed because I'm like, I remember this comment about how Asian people are supposed to be smart. I'm like, oh, well, guess what? I'm definitely. Uh, so reading was a struggle for me, and I did have
Yeah.
to go to a reading special. I don't know. I just remember
Yeah.
a special reading teacher, and I
Mhm.
do have a hard time comprehending like what I read in
And have to
terms
go
of
back.
back. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've gotten better over time. Like I chunk
Cool.
it, but yeah, it's fascinating you said that because I think there's a lot of us that really, really struggled with reading, and we either
Mhm.
weren't identified or it was like you were ashamed because
That
reading. I don't know about you, but these literacies, like it's so we put so much emphasis on it, right?
you're
As
right.
part of learning, and if you suck at it, I mean, you're
Yeah,
like Shaun the Kid.
exactly. And if you're not learning in the way that learning, you're supposed to quote unquote learn it, like,
Mhm.
to be, because you're memorizing as opposed to learning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What at the phonetics or this, this is the consonants, the sounds, and blah, blah, learning all of that. I think it's was looked down upon too, in reference to how you did. And then if you didn't learn in the classroom, if you didn't learn this specific way, you were put out to a outside classroom. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And then
Mhm.
how does that feeling, and what were kids saying? And it was like, one of those type of things. So my mom always kind of kept me on the mainstream of things.
Mhm.
But it was good to know that she me and her could communicate that I was having a problem, as
Yeah.
opposed to her overlooking it, like mainstreaming me and then not saying, "Hey, I know it's tough," and let's try this, let's do that. You know what I mean? And then honestly, I think when I was getting ready to take the SATs is when I got my first reading enrichment specialist, just to like make sure that the speed of things and all that stuff was in play, and I got it. And I realized, I'm like, shoot, I think I missed like 4 weeks of like kindergarten, first grade, right? I know, like, cuz it's something there was like, I don't even think I remember that part. Did they even teach us that? Yeah,
No,
like,
honestly, no, because I actually go to these. I mean, in early childhood, we don't have any systematic way of doing phonemic, and it's because nobody's taught this. Even in my elementary ed program, the amount of time we spent on phonics and phonemic, the science behind reading, we
yeah.
did not spend enough time, and so it's kind of like a crapshoot on how the teacher on what they're how they were educated, and they're great systems, Daria, that have been
Mhm.
developed, but people need to the invest in evidence-based programs and put them in place, because like,
Right, right. And not
and
make
that's what I'm
everything
really
so
keen on,
not
right? Like
reachable for the
uniform.
average. Mhm.
We need to equity means like equal opportunity programs too, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you can't put that in, hooked on phonics and make it 300 and something dollars, and then not the average Joe can't get the pieces of the puzzle. You know what I mean? So how do you get that into the regular academic mainstream
Yeah, how do you put
public
that
schools?
in?
You know what I mean? Like,
How do you
why
put
can't
that
we
in the
do that?
school? We cannot hold parents account.
Accountable. Well, I
Parents,
mean, I think there's a combination. I do. I
like,
agree. There's an extent, but then there's
it,
the pandemic let me know, like, yo, these chicks and men that are getting in these classrooms with 21 of these kids are amazing, right?
they are
At the
amazing.
end of the
They are
day, right?
amazing.
I think that 21 of them, number 1, crazy,
Mhm.
right? Maybe got 3 other people in there, but at the same time, we're talking about how is that going to, at the end of the day, really pan out when we're talking about each child and their different type of learning being addressed,
It's
you know?
true. It's
And so
true.
I think that has been something that, you got to balance, how much weight you can put on both ends, because I think you got to know your kid too. I think my mom, the way I got through is because my mom was the balancing, you know what I mean? And
Mm.
it seems like at the end of the day, I think that the combination definitely needs to be there. But I mean, if we're talking about early things in my life, right, that were at that time, you know what I mean, like traumatic, and I think even probably to date, right, being traumatic, was just the reality that I was different in
Mhm.
even that, like how I learned, right? And then I grew up as one of the only 2 minority families, you know what I mean, in a community that, honestly, I was different, you know what I mean? And it was a lot of, sometimes not recognizing it, you know what I mean, and growing up not recognizing it, and then getting to the stage of recognizing it and being called the N word, and how that hit me hard, because I was in this community that didn't express that they didn't like me, because the teacher ends up telling me, and I find this out in high school, that because I'm 1%, we're only 1% in the community, it's not a threat. But if we were like 40, 60, it would be a threat. And it was like, whoa, did he just say that to me? He just said that to me. And I had to process it, right? Because
Mhm.
I wasn't that kid that just popped off and when it was like, what did you say? I went and I talked to my dad about it, and it was just one of those really astonishing moments for me early on to know that a place that I called home really there was and after that finding out, that there was a good portion that didn't really accept me, but they just dealt because I was the least of them that could be coming into the neighborhood. And so that was finding out that, it, the beautiful picture, definitely had its ugly stains in it. And I think and when we're talking about trauma across the board, I think that that's when we're talking about the spectrum, you know what I mean? I think, yes, it's on one lower end of the spectrum, but when you're young, you don't recognize how many things in your life, in your childhood, that really do affect you. You
Mm,
know, I remember early on recognizing that there was things that I um, did in my adult life, and I didn't know where they were coming from, you know what I mean? And I think I even expressed to you the art therapy aspect of things, you know
mhm,
what I mean? It came to light because I was using art therapy as a way or doing, like, crafts and waking up in the morning and just, putting things together, whether it was cards or bookmarks or whatever, was this way to express that and putting these little taglines and to like make people feel better. Um, and it was telling because even today, I'm still kind of doing the same thing.
mhm.
Um, and I just in a different way, in a different form. But at the same time, it's just trying to look at how, some of those childhood experiences have um, affected you, good, bad, or indifferent, you know what I mean? And recognizing, like, even if you're a sibling, like how it affects one as opposed to the other, has been kind of one of those amazing things as you get older as well. Um, but then I think when we're talking about like trauma, when we actually use this term trauma to a moment, um, I think there's a lot that people have gone through in their lives, where and everybody's experienced it. It's just like on this spectrum, right?
Yes.
Because so that's another thing is I realized through this reading through everything or listening through, whatever the case may be. Right? But this reading through this different material, it was like recognizing that, you know, this um, trauma can be looked at be because it's really relative
Mhm.
to the each individual. Because everybody has the traumatic, or maybe a few, right? Or maybe a lot, traumatic experiences that they've gone through that they could possibly pinpoint. That they could, as I say the word trauma, they're like, what is my trauma? Right?
Yeah.
What do you think one of your traumatic experiences that has been in life that now this is the part that you to date can see how it's affected you, good, bad, or indifferent?
That's a great question. And I really love the fact that you're acknowledging so I know that there's some shunned words right now. Like I know we're in October of 2022 and some shunned words. I don't want to talk about COVID anymore and I don't want to talk about people using the word grief and I don't want to talk about people talking about trauma, like trauma this, trauma that, trauma. Well, guess what, folks? Like I'm sorry to say that these words when we keep shoving them down and don't discuss them is a problem. So
Thank you.
here's
Thank
the
you.
thing. If you need to come up with a word that is not going to carry the same weight for you, then call it the C. Let someone to call it the C word at a meet or a talk. Do whatever you need to do to even though that brings up other stuff, but whatever.
I know, right.
Okay. But anyways, I do whatever you need to do, but no, shoving this stuff in a corner, like not addressing it,
It's not
right?
getting you anywhere. Not
Right.
getting you anywhere.
And I
Yeah.
want to say, you can't measure someone else's trauma, so we need to stop comparing. Like, save the competition for sibling rivalry. I mean, like, come on already.
Right.
We have
And as
to
siblings, sorry,
get
did I say that?
yes, as siblings. Yes,
As
save
little
it.
children, not as adults, but still not the point.
No, no, save that stuff for that. But I can't compare. So grow that empathetic feeling part of yourself that we all have, that human compassionate heart. I was doing a meditation the other day and I literally was, it was a bias, like which part of you want to become more open. And mine was, my
Mm,
scope was my heart. And it's not just me. We all need to open it a little wider to receive, give love, right? So
yep.
that means, and you're probably reminded that when we judge other people and judge other people's trauma, judge other people's, then where is your digging?
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Right. And I think that that's where it's now trying to say, well, what lens am I looking through? Right. And
Hmm.
I think when we're talking about like lenses, um, you know, think about our feelings, and I got to show you guys this because when we were actually in our grief education course, we we had David Kessler brought up the fact of feelings. And in that, he was very, you know, it was very poignant to me because I had always been talking about the lens that we look through, and at the end of the day, how the lens we look through is a lot based off of feelings. So I was going to actually have Juan just kind of cue up this wheel and you guys can just look at it for a second. And you can find this, it's, probably all over the internet, who knows? But this wheel was very important to me because if you kind of look at the center, you're kind of seeing, okay, these are the basic areas of feelings, right? And how it branched out from there into these smaller things that we refer to, but we don't necessarily always associate with, right? So, I think it was important, especially in the areas of anger. Sometimes you're not recognizing that, your betrayal of somebody is your anger, you being annoyed by somebody is anger. And so it's like this lens that we're looking through. Is this lens through anger? Is it through fear? Is it through bad experiences? Is it through being surprised or happy or sad, or additionally, this being disgusted? Um, I think that is also helpful in trying to figure out, well, how do you kind of attack, you know, this thought process, of moving forward at the end of the day. And it's sometimes recognizing that my fear is why I'm saying no, right? Or I'm disgusted with this person and how they functioned is why I'm acting such way. And so the thing about it is, I think that is also for me been a way to help get my emotions in line. So am I emotionally well right now? Like, what lens of because are any of these like good lenses to look through, right? Maybe a few of them, yes, you could say, well, happy's a good one to look through, but happiness is temporary, right? So it might not be the best lens to be always looking through. Like, I want to be happy. I just want to feel happy. This is what I want. I want happy, right? When we're talking about people that have gone through loss, right? We're talking about them saying what? I just want to feel what? Like, what do you think one of the words that they would say? I just want to feel better. I just want to feel better. Oh, wait, I think I can't hear you, Arthi. Oh, I think your mic might be muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did that because there was some noise outside. Yeah, better. If you're in a
Yeah.
state of numbness, then you're because you've carried numbness for so long, then you're trying to get to a different. You know, Dari, I've looked at this wheel a lot
Yeah.
with clients and with well, and I you can't see this, y'all, but I brought the pillow. It's just like Dari's, but in a pillow form, and I've always put it up there. Oh, I'm gonna see it again. You can't really see it, but yeah, it's very similar to what. So it's a pillow form
Oh, you're
because.
frozen.
Oh, am I frozen? No.
Yeah. It's okay. Yeah, so that pillow form.
Pillow
Can I
form,
hear?
and I just want to say, like, what happens is we were taught we stay in this inner pie, and we have so even with kids, like really helping them to expand their vocabulary
Mhm.
on the layers of sadness. Like really, what is the stem of your sadness, right? Where then keep
Right.
going down to the root, and then are you noticing any of those feelings in your body?
Mm.
Right,
Mm. Yeah.
playing with
And where are you
tension.
holding it at?
Where are you holding?
Yeah, I took a wonderful grief, yoga class, and it was talking about, like, where are you holding that grief? And I'm
Oh, with Paul
realizing
Dennison, who does that work with grief
oh, it was
yoga?
great. Yeah, yep,
Yes.
yep. And I
Right?
think yeah, it was just amazing to recognize that when just like you're saying, you're looking at these different aspects and then how it's actually physically affecting you, you know? Um, the tension, like, that you have in your neck, like, "Why is my neck always tense?" Or, "Why is my"
Mhm.
maybe you're holding some of it there, you know?
Good.
And recognizing that is in itself, was amazing to me because that's why so many, alternative therapies became important to try to implement into my life as
Mhm.
I was having, all these other things because it added a different feeling. It created a different feeling that was something that you started to want to gravitate more and more to. I think even with like me physically not being able to do what I used to do, you know what I mean? It aggravates me because I know that what running used to do and how that feeling is just amazing, so you do it to the extent you can, but I think it's important to recognize that a lot of this wheel, all right, is basically looking at how we after trauma are surviving, you know um not necessarily living too. We're surviving in the moment. We're looking for something that will make us feel better. And how will we do so? I always think about even and being good to be even more probably poignant. And actually, one, you can take that down, I think, is that um, we have to recognize these feelings are sometimes overwhelming for the masses of people, to be honest with you. And it's how each one of us tries to deal with these different feelings and recognizing that, you know, these things can actually create their own disease in themselves. When something is taking over them and can just not necessarily move beyond where they're at. And that's the reality of people thinking about even suicide is that these feelings are overpowering to the
Oh,
point where they're creating an illness within. Just like my MS is a disease, that becomes the disease that they deal with. That's not them. You know what I mean? This is this thing, these emotions, because that's real. Our emotional wellness is real, right? So at the end of the day, people can be so emotionally low to the point it even chemically changes things.
mhm, mhm.
So recognizing the fact that, when people are in having had traumatic experiences, there is a lot to be said for getting up in the morning.
Mhm, mhm.
So when we're talking about this word that we come here today, and I know we're getting to it finally at this point, is this post-traumatic growth. We're talking about how positively you are making personal changes and developing, beyond where you're at in that moment in time, in that season, and recognizing the steps that you made or have or and the things that you
Are making.
are making, right? Because a lot of people are not necessarily taking in consideration of what they are doing, never
Right.
mind what they have done or what they haven't done, you know? And I think, and I apologize, I just want to shut
I really took a big pause on that one, Daria, because when we don't show ourselves compassion of like, so part of the monkey mind and goal set, don't get me wrong, goal setting's great, but it doesn't account for the present moment of where you are and how to celebrate where you are.
are
You know what I'm
exactly.
saying?
That's
So,
why gratitude
so
is
that
huge
part,
right now. Yeah.
yes. I
Yep.
also wanted to acknowledge something you said, or you were asking me about my own trauma, and so I never thought of it as I didn't actually relate losing losing my dad as a trauma that I had because I don't know. I just thought, okay, he died. Like I think we've because now I think we have given definition then and I have been doing my own work on what
Hmm.
it means when we're while working with clients and wherever. Then I remember I think I've told you before, like, wait, I need to down and hold my horse. I've also had my own share of experiences, right? So now I don't like you can still acknowledge your stuff and still be a compassionate, caring human being, but you have to acknowledge your own stuff. So for so long, I was like, oh, this is not like, I'm still so blessed. I still have a home and I still have this. Well,
Yes,
but I also don't have the honor of having a male figure for many fundamental years that many people tell me how much having a male figure really matters for a woman.
exactly.
You know what I mean? But it took
Yeah.
time to get here for me to say that because of the fact of permission giving. And that is a piece of society that comes in that we then take on upon ourselves. And so I
Yep.
think the message for everyone that Daria and I are trying to spread is like, even if society doesn't give us permission, but it has become, it really, people are doing the work expansively to give us permission, you still have to get that internal dialogue going of,
That's it.
right?
That's it. Totally. Totally. I think it's as you were talking and speaking about the loss of your dad and not necessarily recognizing that it was a trauma, right? It was that in itself, I think when you're not necessarily knowing what is missing and then you're being told and you're like, "Oh my god, I didn't." I think that in itself is, something where I feel like when we're talk about kids being resilient and I hated it. I think I hated it, until I read about post-traumatic growth and
Mhm.
how, some you see the differences, how people, like, grieve and some can kinda pick up and kinda keep moving forward. And, they talk about those people as being people that are resilient, but it's usually due to the fact that they've had some childhood experiences that allow them to move in spaces because like you've experienced suffering.
Mhm.
And I think that talks about even beyond ourselves here, but like the racial grief gap that exists and how there is a difference because suffering has been something that communities have experienced early in life,
Yes.
early in life. And the
Mhm.
problem that the one thing that I started getting to is that how we talk about having resilience and we talk about how even they say that post traumatic growth, right, is a pathway to resilience. And then I said, oh, that is amazing. But then I saw it like a mountain. I saw it in my head where if I'm art therapy, excuse me, right? If I'm drawing it out, right? And I'm at my low and I'm going up and I'm hitting my peak, and that resilience, like I'm resilient right there, right? But then I realized that there's also desensitized,
Mm.
right? And that is where I feel we have to also give light to is that we can be resilient, but to the point where we are also now desensitized and aren't able to feel or avoid feeling.
Totally.
And
That
that
numbness, right?
numbness that you were just saying, right? And recognizing that that's like something that we have to get a hold on because society depends on it. Like
Yeah,
who
it
we
depends on our numbness. Remember I asked you and oh, I have to share this with you.
Mhm.
Tired of how are you question. So in one of my things this week, I said, "What color are you today? Are you in this moment?" Then on
Right.
another call, I said, "What color are you?" And then when it was my turn, I said blue, and then they said, "I'm sorry," and I'm like, "Oh, actually, it's not a sad blue. I'm just melancholy right now, right?" So we got to this like their perception of what blue meant. Do you get what I'm saying? So we just had
I
a really cool conversation about like, and we got to
co-
go deeper. I said melancholy. I don't use big words.
yes, sad, bad, and glad. I know. Right?
I have the emotional IQ of a sad, bad man. Okay? Like I don't use big word what
I love it.
it is, but we went there because we had permission. So I like am on this revolution of like I have to do it at the grocery store to ask the person at the register. I mean, really, how are you? You're not good all the time. You would want a freaking break. It's been 3 hours and you haven't gotten your 15-minute break. But how in that moment, if
Totally.
I just asked you, could it
Right.
be? It sucks in my head, but I get to
Right.
verbalize it to somebody and connect, and then I can move
Mm.
on to my, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Totally understand that. I think it's huge because I in when I'm thinking about the people that I interact with on a daily basis, you're not necessarily knowing what lens they're looking through on a daily. You know what I mean? And I think that when you're approached by somebody that says, "Hey, how are you?" For me, I used to be like, "Good, good, good." Right now, I'm like, "You really want to know?" Right? Or I'm like,
Mhm.
"Well, that's a loaded question," right? Because it's like, I'm just saying, like, these are my answers to you because I'm like, especially in the middle of the
Yeah.
pandemic, I'm like, and you're asking me this is the question is, at hand. But I think that that is one thing to also recognize that when we're talking about post-traumatic growth, it's not necessarily universal.
Mhm.
And it's
Mhm.
not that everybody can't do it. It's just when we're talking about these, resilient people that can kind of bounce back, they might not see the 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 reality of or it's not even the reality, excuse me, the your personal reality, you know what I mean, in reference to what your path is looking like and how you're walking your path. And so it becomes for me a commonplace. And that's even what I wanted pause to be, you know what I mean, is really to be that commonplace where we all can come together in this space to be able to then create this post traumatic growth thought process and be able to really stand on the wisdom of our wounds. You know what I mean? I think it was cool because there's this grief platform called Compassionate Friends. And we
Mhm.
actually had one of the speakers come before us, Sherry O'Laughlin, I think. Sherry O'Laughlin, but she is actually one of the creator of Compassionate Friends, and she had a loss of her own, and how she turned that from the pain to a passion. And I think it's definitely easier said than done. To be honest with you, I feel like even people that are in their early stages of loss and grieving periods, I wouldn't even consider thinking about it. It's just not the season, but there will be a season. And to know that and to at least be able to have the faith to hold on to that, I think that's one thing that I've recognized with my life is faith, is huge in this space, and I don't whatever works for you, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think you're having faith, not in a higher being in the universe, you know what I mean? Additionally, in reference to how it transcends into having faith in yourself to be able to pick up after the storm, and sometimes for the longest time it was putting signs around me to make me remember, but then as time's gone on, it becomes something where you try to walk in it, but it's something you choose to do every day. And that's why I was telling you before, I have right above my fireplace in my living room, choose joy, and behind it says today, right? Because it's one of those things where even people that you're seeing that have had traumatic losses, that's a daily thing. That is not something that they're walking and being able to do um, simply, and without the pain of every day, but allowing it to push them in and not pull them down. Because I know that, with people that have lost their loved ones, um, I know there probably half of the people that I run into, they're always just kind of wondering how to move forward and is it okay to? And I think the okay to is recognizing that that person that you've lost loves you enough to want you to continue to live and be all that you can be and want you to not stay in this place, of grief and it's like I said, time. And you don't put any time on yourself, like golly. My mother always said
There's a
patience.
lot of factors, right? Especially for
Yes.
those who have gone through.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
when I this week, I know we're almost at time, but the seniors and our children, I really have thought a lot about their during this period. I know our essential workers as well, but our children and our seniors is our most vulnerable population, and what that
Sure.
experience has
Yep.
been like. You're already contemplating your own
Yep.
mortality at that state, and then at the beginning of life, where you're just in a curious place and when you're literally shut down from the world, right? So,
Yeah.
um, you have a lot of Corey, sorry, thank you for talking about time. I the, there's a lot of myths that I know we talk about debunking on, but time and grief, time, time plus grief, that idea of healing, however you want to look at it. I don't know. I haven't come up with the right, but maybe time plus grief equals permission, or time plus permission equals. I don't know yet, but I'm trying to say is like I think
I
we
know what
need
you
to
mean.
just back off of the time because it's so stressful
Right.
and it's not matching what it's been either told
Definitely.
or, you know?
Definitely. Because if the reality is it's grief equals, right, the time and the patience with yourself, or,
Yes.
the compassion with yourself, because
So
there's
I don't
nothing.
even like time I don't like the one about time heals all wounds. Like bullshit. Like
No, you gotta do
first
work, girl. There's some work in
and
that, girl.
some wounds won't heal. People who are amputated, that is
No.
a wound for life. Okay, right? I just
Right.
saw me with an amputated leg when I just really pay attention and you're like
Yeah,
I think about him and I was just thinking, what does his life look like prior and post? That is a
exactly.
wound. He has a wound. I
Yeah,
mean,
the wound,
that's
exactly, and the grief, he's even grieving the loss of what could
it's
have been.
what could have
I
been with
mean,
that
that's
limb,
huge.
right? Yes. So I just
You don't
want to
even
say
know.
there's a couple of them that need to be debunked because we have said them in this process and we did this in our training.
Mhm.
Right, we talked about we really need to part of our job is to help to expel them so that then
Yeah.
the work can happen. And that's the one that I'm really keen on. Like, no, all wounds don't heal. They just it's like when my sister-in-law when you suture up, like it becomes a little finer and cleaner, maybe.
Right. Right.
Oh, it's time.
I
Sorry,
know. It's every time that's
I
like the
know.
pause is not long enough.
Yes. Any parting thoughts?
Parting thoughts, honestly, I think, just to reiterate that easier said than done, but recognizing the rainbow, looking at the silver linings, and additionally, um, allowing them to move you enough to keep going until you start going on your own. And I think, like I said, just reiterating the faith in that you were created for a purpose, and sometimes it's beyond self. And I think that if we can just stop and recognize that, a lot of the times, we can kind of shift our minds a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily change the pain. And it doesn't, like, even post traumatic growth, just recognizing it's not going to take away the pain, but it's going to allow you to use the pain in a different way. And I think that's the basically the gem that the world gets from you, because when you decide to open up the pain and the things that you've gone through to others, then the others get to move forward and benefit from that. So I love you guys. I thank you
Thank you
guys
so
for
much.
allowing us.
All
Again,
right,
sorry to keep
everyone.
running on. The
Yeah.
loaded question.
Sorry, I did ask you a lot of questions at the end. Okay, everyone, have a good
Love you. Bye bye.